買うわ。
I love a good recommendation. I love getting them, and I love giving them. There aren't many feelings quite like someone enjoying something that you recommended. As someone who prides himself on being able to decipher most of his friends' taste well enough to regularly give good, if not great, recommendations, I was more than a little distraught when I continuously had friends brush aside Spy Family. Now, this was before the anime, and my friends don't really make the time for manga like I do, so it's kind of understandable. But I didn't give up. I kept trying, which in hindsight probably made them less interested. But then the anime was announced, and I was telling everyone I knew that watched anime that they need to watch Spy Family once it starts. And after the first few episodes aired, everyone was telling me how much they liked it. And I felt just one thing.
Vindication!
Adapting Spy Family was always going to be a challenge, but luckily Studios Wit and Cloverworks were up to that challenge. No, you know what? Scratch that. They weren't simply up to the challenge. They didn't want to make something good, they wanted to make something amazing, and they knocked it out of the goddamn park. The first hurdle they had to clear was making it look as good as the manga. Judging the anime solely off of this wouldn't be remotely fair, as this manga is gorgeous. These panels are so expressive. Endo Tatsuya is a master at conveying emotions and his characters' mental states. Now, it's not a deal breaker if they didn't quite get there, as there have been plenty of adaptations that didn't quite look as good as they should have, but were still decent. But making it look this good showed just how much they cared. Just take the interview for Eden Academy. In any panel where Lloyd is not speaking, only listening, his eyes are narrowed as he listens to everything intently so he can remain level-headed and get an advantage. Except for Anya, who he has no idea how to deal with yet. The way Yor's eyes are partially closed by the way she smiles when she talks about meeting Lloyd shows that she does, to some degree, have affection for her new life. And Anya's mouth and eyes are always wide to show that even with her ability to read minds, she is well out of her element. But it is not just in their expressions that you can see their emotions. Taking a panel to show Lloyd clench his fist as Yor is insulted does just as much as his inner monologue to show that he just might care more than he has yet to realize. But the best panel is the full page dedicated to Lloyd near the end. His eyes are wide, which we usually only see when Anya flusters him. His mouth is slightly open to show that he's acting on instinct, and the shadow over his face symbolizes the anger he usually keeps in check. You can see just how badly Lloyd wants to punch Swan and how out of his element that makes him feel. The anime largely does the same, but with less focus on Lloyd's reactions in the background. This places the spotlight more on the speakers and lets their vocal performances shine to bring the characters to life. When Lloyd has to rein in his anger at Swan for insulting Yor, and he rationalizes that she's not his real wife, they added an extra angle of his frown before showing them sitting beside each other. In the manga, this panel shows half of each of them as his thoughts of her not being his real wife sit between them. In the anime, their faces are mostly obscured, and the space between their chairs is greater to show that there is still a lot of distance between them. And again, the best part is the altercation with Swan at the end. When Anya cries, we get shown the rest of the room before Yor stands to rush to her side. Lloyd's face remains neutral and expressionless as he tries to remain calm, until Swan speaks and his eyes narrow. The uneasy music grows throughout the scene as Swan jabs at the fake family, reaching a wonderful trill when Lloyd rises to strike and the camera zooms into his face before cutting away to the outside of the building. And the extra little oomph on top before the scene ends is the close-up on Lloyd's face as he says they may have picked the wrong school. When it needs to be, the animation is top-notch. And I don't just mean action. I mean the love they put into literally everything Yor does. I mean, to be fair, she deserves it. Just look at her. She's perfect in every way. But let's talk about the fights anyway. Or, well, one fight in particular. Okay, one punch. Yes, that punch. You know the one. The build-up to this moment is excellent in the manga, with the way it keeps Damien in the center of almost every panel. The way he looms over Anya and how multiple panels are dedicated to zooming in on Anya's eye before the fire lights in it, and she punches him in a beautiful double-page panel. But it's even better in the anime. The music is bouncy as Damien and his goons torment Anya and Becky, giving the whole scene a playful feeling to show us how full of himself Damien is, and that this is more or less a game to him as the tension mounts. Noise almost drowns him and his friends out as the camera rotates and zooms into Anya's eye, and the fire is lit. The music cuts out almost suddenly, and that's when it happens. The anime's extra frame of Anya turning builds anticipation before the most cathartic impact you will see in just about any fight. It's so good, you can't just watch it once. Speaking of satisfying impacts, this anime has the 3 best sports episodes in the last decade. I am not joking. Okay, I'm definitely exaggerating because of how good they were, but they are seriously that good. They didn't have to go this hard, but they did. And they did it for us. I barely even remember the dodgeball chapter of the manga, but it was so damn good in the anime. Almost all of the memorable parts are anime original, like Bazooka Bill's training flashback. Which, between you and me, that deep voice coming from a child was already hysterical, but to hear him say, "Daddy!" absolutely floored me. Or Damien's training montage, and all of Anya's training with Yor. None of that was in the manga. And, with a couple of exceptions, those were the best parts of this little filler story. But all of that pales in comparison to the greatest conflict in the show so far. Yor versus Nightfall. There is more tension in this one serve than some entire series. The blue glow as the ball tears the ground up beneath it with the sheer force of the wind it generates shows you exactly how deadly the serve truly is.
Now that's more like it.
Aside from the way that it reminds me of a good old beam clash, The way Nightfall struggles against it as she tries to hold true to her ideals is so shonen that it hurts. If she wasn't challenging Best Girl, it'd almost be enough to make me want to root for her just a little bit. But in reality, seeing her racket shatter is the most exhilarating thing since... Or... But that ends in a joke, so it's not quite the same. And neither of those filled me with the same amount of unadulterated joy that made me leap off the couch and yell.
Yeah! Oh, better luck next time, buddy! Woo!
Though, as much as I love those kinds of gags, I have to admit that I don't think Spy Family is that funny. I do find it hilarious, and it has, on many occasions, made me burst out with laughter. I just don't think that the jokes are the best part. And I think that's because the humor isn't what drew me in. Half the time we visit Eden Academy, I start losing interest because it's supposed to be funny. But those kids just aren't that entertaining most of the time. But when Damien and his pals go to Stella Lake, and we see the wonder in their eyes upon seeing the stars reflected in the pool, or them simply laying on the ground to relax, I can't help but crack a smile. Found family is one of my favorite tropes, probably my absolute favorite. There's just something about damaged and lonely people coming together to become more important than anything else to each other. And that is what makes Spy Family so special. That found family. The scenes that resonate most with me aren't the awesome action scenes, or the gut-bursting gags, but the quieter moments. And I'm inclined to believe that the team that brought this anime to life might just agree with me, based solely on the fact that they took what was barely 2 pages at the end of a chapter, something that was honestly kinda forgettable, and turned it into one of the most heartfelt moments of the show, almost completely eclipsing all of the action and jokes that preceded it. And that wasn't even the first time. Hell, look at the first episode. Its climax is basically a perfect example of what I'm trying to say. Sure, I loved Lloyd being clever and using Flower as a smokescreen to Batman some goons, but that is nothing compared to Twilight. A man who gave up his name and any chance at fame to make a better future, remembering why he did it. When I think about Anya, I don't immediately think of her god-tier smug face or her hilarious and inept attempts at befriending Damien. I think of the girl who was abandoned, finding comfort with her new father. You can feed me ditzy day job Yor or badass I want her to step on me Yor all day, and I'll consider it eating well. But I'd much rather see the Yor that hugs the child she's fought tooth and nail to protect before they say goodbye. Or the Yor that hums a lullaby to her husband. It's in these kinds of moments that Spy Family truly shines. So give me a man who has given up his own happiness, feeling guilty for not fully trusting his fake wife. Show me that lonely little girl everyone used to call creepy, falling asleep in the back of a car with her first friend after a long day of shopping. show me the tears of a cold-blooded assassin crying because her new family liked the food she cooked. Because as funny as it is, no matter how much it makes me laugh, no matter how good any individual action scene is, the parts that stick with me the most, the things I'll hold on to the longest, are the vulnerable moments. When Spy Family shows its heart.